Hey guys, wanted to take this video to sort of talk less about the nuts and bolts of what things will look like and more a framework of big ideas, some encouragements, some more personal, just reflections and thoughts that I think is important to share during crazy time, right? This is something none of us have ever done before. So this is Uncharted Territory, which is the first image. So there's two images I want to share, analogies really, or illustrations. Uncharted territory, and disruption as opportunity. So the first, I think about uncharted areas of a map, scary, unknown, and this is something you hear in the news all the time. It says uncharted territory. We don't know. There's no playbook for this, and this is it's scary. Small ways it's scary, big ways it's scary for society as a whole, and all that. Anyway, Chris Crutcher, I was listening to him on an interview. He's a young adult author, and he made the observation that we keep hearing this phrase uncharted territory, and but uncharted territory is where we grow, and specifically where we learn new things about ourselves, new things about our capacities and those around us, and about our world. So I'm trying to reframe uncharted territory. Yeah, that's scary. It's a lot of unknowns right now. There are many, many unknowns. And yet, can we think about this as growth time, as a time to learn? I think that's really important moving forward. And I'm doing my best to try and think about the ways that I need to grow and can, as we're all kind of outside of our comfort zones. But that's not always the worst. So it is uncharted, and we're all outside of our comfort zone. What are some like guidance? This is very non-specific, of course, but abstract guidance on how to live in outside our comfort zones in that uncharted territory. And I'm finding more and more, I've got to to understand that it is not just uncharted for me; it's uncharted for everybody. Of course, as teenagers, this is something you need to have extra grace with me as your teacher. Certainly your parents. It's not just you that it's uncharted for; it's everybody. And you need to be forgiving to yourself. Extra measures of grace all around. There's no playbook. We're all working off script here and ad-libbing. So keep that in mind for the people that you're rubbing elbows with where you live right now, and that's very important. 3 bullet points. I'll put them all up here to think through. Okay, now how do we live in the uncharted? The first bullet point's most important. Processing loss is really important. We know that the coronavirus epidemic is tons of suffering, unprecedented suffering, many corners of the globe, lots of loss, people losing lives, people losing loved ones. And we don't know where our own region and area fits in the timeline of all that. But even if there's less dramatic areas of loss, we need to talk about, admit, face, process, all kinds of loss. Like you've lost your friends at the cafeteria who you are hanging out with every day at lunch, or you've lost the band that you're in at school, or the production, or track season, bye-bye, baseball, whatever the case may be. You've lost prom, you've lost a whole host of different things. Many of you aren't working right now. Maybe you've lost your job. And so those are all real things to face and admit. And I tend to be yeah, everything's all right, I'm fine. And it's true compared to many people. I'm very blessed, but in terms of being able to talk about things with someone who you trust, and writing things down, find ways to process loss, and know also that other people need space and need confidants and need to have topics be on limits in terms of your conversations to process their loss. And a lot of us, maybe it's you, have really been slammed. Mom or dad have lost a job. There's going to be financial loss in the future, right? So it's not something that we can just always smile and pretend doesn't exist. It's important to get it out in the open where we can kind of chew on it, digest it, and do that with others. So that's the first and most important bullet point. Bullet point number 2. Be present. Be present. I could talk about this for the next 6 to 8 hours. So instead, I'm just going to say, what does it look like for you to be present? Mull that over a little bit. Um, Looking toward the future, the map analogy, we can revisit that. We're looking at discovering uncharted territory and perhaps creating, new maps or whatever. But think it's not just discovering what's out there. The great unknown is scary, and we don't know how anything's going to shake out. But we have at least a little role in creating. The map analogy falls short. You actually can create what's out there in the uncharted territory, at least in your realm of influence and in the story of your own life. So, I mean, I want to end the uncharted territory analogy with yes, understand what we've lost, what we've left behind, but think about what you'll gain. And so answering that question, what will I gain, is where we move on to the second analogy, number 2. It's much more, in my wheelhouse. It's literally in my own backyard. Maps are great, but I'm not into, cartography. Magellan and NASA figured most of that out. This is like your good old agricultural analogy. Aren't you excited? So think about disruption. Disruption is a word that we're hearing all the time. I am anyway. The supply chains are disrupted. Your education is disrupted, right? We know life as we know it, all very disrupted in many different ways. And so the analogy is to think about a garden. Think about my garden, for instance. I'm just going to click this video, see if it'll work. Look at this soil disruption, okay?
This is soil disruption, super disruption.
Yeah, super disruption.
For the garden, where we are.
Yeah, it's good for a garden. Ask any gardener. Soil disruption, I know in biology with succession you'd call it soil disturbances or something like that. Same idea. You can't have a garden if you don't disturb the soil. You got to till things up. I'm sorry for no-dig gardeners out there. This is my neighbor's tiller. He always lets me borrow it. I love this piece of machinery. I just wanted to show you the picture, but it's an old 1970s tiller. It's an awesome machine to use. It tills me more than it tills the soil, but it's pretty fun to use. Anyway, you got to disrupt the soil if you're gonna garden. And I know that, again, limits of the analogy, because with all of this, the changes and sheltering and all this with the coronavirus stuff, it's like some of us have, I've got like a bulldozer, right? This is not fun gardening time, and it's a sweet analogy, but this is, I got it. There it is. It's like just slamming us, right? That's real. And, but the point is, at the end of the day, we've got big patches of bare soil. Stay with me for that analogy. We've got big patches of bare soil, and that is a real opportunity. And here's the deal, why bare soil is an opportunity. If you don't take the opportunity to cultivate something worth having, the weeds will take the opportunity, right? Bare soil, if you're a gardener, it's like time to spring into action. Otherwise, you get, here I got some weeds. Unfortunately, it didn't take me very long to find pictures like this around my property, but I got look at this fence. This is the northeast corner of our property. Oof, it's like full of thorns and stuff in there. So I don't know, weeds, lots of weeds, bad, always war on weeds. But the thing is, it is tempting to just kind of float through this. Again, that creates extra stress. It's easy to sit on our hands during these times or get into wait and see mode. But I'd encourage you to make something happen, to pay attention. If you have bare soil and you take care of it, what happens? Oh, if you work hard, if you sweat, if you get a plan, if you, are intentional and not just leave it out there and let things float, that design and intention can create a beautiful garden. This is last year's garden, of course, my wife and our oldest, and here's the year before that. And sure, there's going to be weeds and maintenance and all this other stuff going on, but what an opportunity. A disruption, horrible soil disruption can bear a lot of fruit, long term. So that's the analogy. Okay, so what do I do with that now? What do you do with that now, right? I've got a nice teacherly question. How are you tending your bare soil? Uh, but think about it with some level of intention. I don't know about you, I'm inundated with resources. And it's cool that people care, like websites and all these, here's what you can do to spend time at home, and here's how you can spend time, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure the meme universe that you're a part of is got all sorts of things that, we should inject a lot of humor into all of this, by the way. I've had a very, this has been straight delivery for me for the most part. I am in earnest. But how are you tending your bare soil? Um, there's a lot of resources out there. But are you being intentional and discerning in how you are listening to those resources, and what you're going to do with your time and energy? Um, there are, of course, things that you've always intended to do, and instead you're it's so easy to just kind of sleep more, or to just watch another show, or whatever the case may be. But think about creating things, or maybe you wanted to master a skill or something. Do it, or invest in a relationship. You've got lots of online resources to do that. Maybe it's you're going to FaceTime a grandma or someone like that every day, or just how can I be intentional so that the way I spend my time actually cultivates who I want to be, and the things that I think are important in life. So um, it could just be organizing things in your life, or working on projects with mom and dad, helping out with cooking, learning to cook, or mastering your skills, whatever. Or pursuing, important relationships you just didn't have time and bandwidth for. And as you do all that, like, this is more important than just, getting a lot done. I tend to measure my worth and how productive I'm being. That's a bad way to go, by the way. What are your opportunities to slow down? Uh, so many of you are caught in sort of the teenage rat race of all this overachievement and activities and your work and all this sort of stuff. And you do have this forced slowdown and, reset, sort of bare soil situation, right? A lot of disruption. Um, so be discerning about slowing down and giving yourself some margin as well, so that the quality of all of your endeavors, whatever you're putting your hands to at this season, will get better. It'll be fuller. Um, this is a mindset shift. Bullet point number 4. It has helped me a lot. It is tempting to look at this time as just, I'm going to hit the pause button, and then whenever whatever life as normal resumes, we don't know what that looks like or when, then we'll just unhit the pause button as if our life's a giant video game, and we're just going to move right on. I think that's just not a healthy way to think about this, because you're not a machine, right? You can't hit pause on a video game. Like, you're growing and changing. The world is obviously changing. You are changing right now. It's kind of back to the weeds versus garden analogy. Something's growing. You are growing. Something's going to grow in your life. It's going to be bad habits like weeds. It's going to be things that you're not proud of. It's going to, or you have an opportunity again. This is opportunity to continue to cultivate the type of person that you want to be, the habits, the practices, building those relationships, and reaching out, which is scary and hard sometimes, but very important for you to grow into to who you're supposed to be. So that's kind of the ending, right? What is most important to you? Think about that. Spend a little time thinking about that. Be reflective for once. Even, you extroverts out there, you can do it. And be quiet and think about what are your values and who do you want to be, and use this time to grow that. So last word. Thanks for making it this far, of course. I want to just invite you to post a response if you want to identify something, either private comment or something for the class, on what are you going to do to grow? What are you going to do over the next 8 weeks? Not necessarily like curricularly Englishy sort of stuff. So I encourage you to share that if you're willing. Just know that I miss you all. I'm thinking of you guys. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to 8 weeks of hearing back from you. Have a good one.